Ladies and gentlemen, and everyone in between, with all due respect, your boy BK. And before we get to my epithets, it's time to ask that age-old question. What y'all cooking out there? Well, it's time to have a steak night. Ladies and gentlemen, and everyone in between, with all due respect, and I do mean with all due respect to all lifestyles and all people of all genders, gender flexibility, and all that. That's what I mean by ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, everyone in between, with all due respect. You know what I'm saying? I really do mean that all due respect aspect, because no matter what you believe, who you love, and who you lay down with at night, what you believe in, what God you praise to, we always got to make sure you're cooking it right. So what's going down? It's your boy BK, aka B Season on IG, aka that boy that be cooking, aka yes, I'm in my Wakanda Forever / Cherokee print. I don't even know. I ordered an African shirt and it's looking a little Lisa Bonet-ish, so I put a little bit of a Galaxy Far, Far Away swag along with it with my natural juices and berries. I hope you like it. I hope you like it because I'm absolutely wearing it.
The player way.
Yes, I do. So here's what's going down. Because just like what I'm wearing, there's levels to all types of cooking. And when it comes to steak, there's levels to this thing. You know what I'm saying? If you want to learn how to make sure you're making steak
the player way.
You know what I'm saying? There's baby ways to make steak. If you think you don't like steak at that level, it's time to move up to the next level. And Epicurious has this amazing video that I've watched a long time ago. Usually I don't watch these videos in advance, but in this particular case, I did watch this video before we got to doing this episode. So I definitely want you to take a look at it. It is a dope video. So I'm going to, as usual, what I do with what y'all cooking this show that you love on YouTube and Facebook watch, I curate all of these episodes to make sure the person who is making the video, you're cooking it right. Absolutely, so that you're cooking it right. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, people always need ideas for dinners and lunches and breakfasts. So I'm just going to make sure to give you the best that there is. You know what I'm saying? You following what you feeling what I'm spilling? You know what I'm saying? Got some E40 for sugary action going on in there. Sprinkle me. We're going to sprinkle it. You know what I'm saying? With the salt. You know what I'm saying? Salt. You know what I'm saying? I'm stupid. Let's get on with the episode. So we're about to watch this episode, 4 levels of steak, because there's levels to this. All right, so we got 4 levels of steak. It looks like somebody got a flank steak. Okay, it looks like somebody New York strip right there. And then that's a ribeye right there. Might be a bone-in ribeye. We're going to see. I really wish that they had done all one cut of steak at the same time to make it even on everybody. And then, of course, you got the food scientist there as well that's going to curate all of that at the end and make comments. We're probably not going to watch that because I'm giving y'all the exclusives during this episode.
Exclusive. The player way.
Exclusive.
Always giving you the pro tips. You know what I'm saying? So that's what we're going to keep on doing. All right, so that's a New York strip right there. So first pro tip, first exclusive of the episode.
Exclusive.
The player way.
Exclusive.
The first exclusive of the player of the someone said Playway podcast of what y'all cooking pro tips is know your cuts of steak. Your cuts of steak is gonna really identify what your eating experience is gonna be like. No matter what you do to the steak, you can sous vide it, you can reverse sear it, you can tenderize and beat it, but ultimately the mouthfeel, the flavor, the marbling, which is the intramuscular fat, how that steak is going to taste to you has everything to do with where it comes from on the cow. And then you're more or less working from there. So what's important there is the cut of steak and knowing what cut of steak. If you're starting out cooking steak, I absolutely recommend, and this is pro tip number 1, start with a ribeye. You can't go wrong with a ribeye steak. It's a little fattier, but it's a much more forgiving cut of steak. So if you overcook it, you really can eat a well done. And I don't recommend this at all. I know I'm about to say it. Chill. Okay. I don't recommend overcooking or cooking to well done on any cut of beef. But in this particular case, if you are still getting to learn about cooking steak and you don't quite know, if you overcook that steak, it's okay, because it's so much intramuscular fat, especially if you get like a prime cut. You're not going to go wrong there. Now, I will say ribeye is a little bit more expensive, but one decent sized ribeye really can feed 2 or 3 people if you know how to stretch it. So that's the first thing. Now, the next thing that you're doing is they're seasoning their steak. Now, my critique of a lot of people is doing too much. A good beef is all about, see how she's putting all that on there? Granted, she's got the badge on there. She is a culinary artist. She went to culinary school. Just because you went to culinary school, in my opinion, it doesn't necessarily make you an expert. I'm not saying she's not. That woman worked real hard to get her degree. I'm not trying to say that she's not qualified. I'm just saying in this particular case, when it comes to steak, my preference and my recommendation to you to make sure you are preparing your steak
The player way.
is don't overdo it. You know, there's only 3 seasonings you need. This is the pro tip. Let's go ahead and give them the exclusive.
Exclusive.
The player way.
Exclusive.
When it comes to making steak the player way, and just making sure you're cooking it right, is that you only need 3 ingredients for a really good steak. Salt, not just the salt that comes out of the little Morton salt thing. No, get you some real good sea salt, pink Himalayan sea salt. Get you some kosher salt. Kosher salt is really good for steak. So get you some kosher salt. So salt, really good quality salt. Second, pepper. Black pepper's fine, but get you a mortar. If you can get you a cracked black pepper, some fresh black pepper that you can crack open yourself in a mortar and pestle, that's really good. Some good black pepper. Now, you're not going to put the pepper on the steak. Pepper's for after you sear the steak, okay? Salt is going to go on the steak before. That's the first thing you're going to put on there. And then the last seasoning ingredient, the last spice that you need to make your seasoned salt, okay, because this is how you create a seasoned salt for steak, is going to be garlic powder, okay? So garlic powder, kosher salt, or any kind of really good quality salt, and then finally some pepper, preferably fresh cracked pepper. All right. And then what you're going to do is you're going to put the salt and then you're going to put the garlic, both, and apply those to your steak itself. By combining those two together, you're creating garlic salt, which is a seasoned salt. So remember, salt by itself is not seasoning. And that garlic, too, is going to season that salt and give it a really good flavor. Some people say that to sear some garlic with that steak. So instead of putting garlic powder, you just, sear garlic with it. That's fine. As you learn more and more about getting garlic flavor into meat, you'll realize that, and this has been proven, one of my favorite channels on YouTube is Guga Foods. Also sous vide everything, both by the same guy. Shout out to Guga. He did an experiment where he took granulated garlic or garlic powder, fresh crushed garlic, minced garlic, put them all together on a steak, sous vide them, put them in a vacuum sealed bag, sous vide them, water circulator, and then seared them afterward. And garlic powder gives you the best garlic flavor, best coverage. So whenever you see a person searing garlic at the very end, they may know how to cook steak and it tastes great, but their steak will never taste as good as yours if you do it
The player way.
And that's the pro tip I gave you. I just gave you a major exclusive.
Exclusive.
The player way.
Exclusive.
So absolutely try that. As you can see, she's steering the steak now. Cast iron is a great way to sear a steak. That's my beginner way of recommending it. So that's, mama right there. You see old mama right there. She's doing her thing. She's cooking a little too high. I think what she did is she put pepper on the steak. That's why I said put pepper last. Pepper will burn on a steak, so you want to be careful about that. Add the pepper afterward. See, they got the garlic in there with it. You know, that's good, but garlic inside the actual seasoning. You also know she used a wet brine earlier. Wet brines are okay, but you got to make sure you pat that steak completely dry before you sear it. Whatever you do to your steak before you sear it, it's a pro tip. Got to give y'all the exclusive situation.
Exclusive.
The player way.
Exclusive.
What gives a crust its crust is called a scientific term, a Maillard reaction. Maillard reaction is how you get that crust. So in order to get that crust the way you want it, you got to make sure that steak is patted dry before it hits that searing hot. Yeah, before it gets on that searing hot pan with the butter and the oil. Also mix a little oil with your butter too so that your butter doesn't burn. So raise that smoke point. So that's what's going on there. You want that really nice crust, and then you want to let it rest. You don't want to immediately start cutting in the steak. About 3 to 5 minutes is plenty. 3 if you're being impatient. 5 if you really want to make sure you're cooking it right. And there you go. She's got some compound butter, doing all kinds of extra stuff to steak. This is where people go too far. I'm going to leave this pro tip thing up here because that's the exclusive.
Exclusive.
The player way.
Exclusive.
Where people go wrong is overdoing the preparation of the steak. Remember, whenever you're cooking a protein, it's about really making that protein the star of the show. Now, yes, you can put other things with the steak, but before you start putting stuff with steak, it's important that you make it just straight on up, just salt, pepper, garlic, and then let it rest, slice into it, and enjoy it that way. You'll find out you may not need to do some of these extra caloric things to the steak. Just because you're doing more doesn't mean that it's better. That's a money tip for you. I'm gonna say it one more time. Doing extra stuff doesn't necessarily add to the flavor and add to the experience. Learn how to taste the meat with the seasoning and enjoy the natural juices of that marbling and that fat. For a flank steak, you're going like the first girl is making on the far left. She needs some sauce because that's a dry steak that she's got going on there. But the other ones, I don't think you need all that. I don't think you need all of those additional things. It doesn't necessarily enhance it. And we're going to move on from there. So I've given you all kinds of exclusives.
Exclusive.
The player way.
Exclusive.
Pro tips to make sure you are cooking your steak. You're cooking it right.
The player way.
Absolutely. If you have any questions, I'm a big steak is, even though cholesterol wise, again, we're going to talk a little bit about health because again, it's about making sure you're cooking things right, and making sure that you understand what you're actually cooking. And it's important that you understand something. Meat is not something, especially beef. If you are trying to lose weight and trying to be healthy, you can make arguments for anything, but from my experience and my understanding about nutrition, and even though I'm a bigger guy, I do know nutrition pretty well. Eating meat is not necessarily the way to bring your cholesterol down. I'm sorry to say, I know it probably shocks you. I know that probably shocks you, and it makes you want to tell me to shut this thing down. But I'm telling you, like when it comes to lowering your cholesterol, lowering your blood pressure, and really extending your life, if you're trying to eat a big porterhouse steak or anything like that's not about eating healthy. So when I hear about people trying to make steak like the healthiest thing to eat, that's not necessarily the thing you need to be worried about. You more so are eating steak because it's an enjoyment thing. It's about full flavor. So I understand that the next piece of advice I'm about to give you is going to sound contradictory, but trust me, when it makes sense when you really think about it. When you're making steak, and we're going to bring up the pro tip real quick, Bring that up real quick because this is an exclusive.
Exclusive.
The player way.
Exclusive.
When it comes to steak, you need to keep in mind that the steak naturally has its own fat. It's got its own buttering situation, especially if you get the right kind of steak for your palate. So adding additional things to the steak is almost about, unless you're talking about flank steak or you're talking about one of the less desirable cuts of steak, sirloin, things like that, those things need gravies, those things need sauces, those things need help because they can be very dry at times. But if you're talking about a prime cut of steak, you're talking about filet mignon, you're talking about a porterhouse, you're talking about New York strip, you're talking about ribeye. Those 4 cuts, you don't really need to be putting extra stuff. Just, enjoy. Give yourself some time to enjoy the flavor of that meat. Identify what steak cut is best for you before you start adding things to it. The more and more I have found, and really the more and more I get with people who are true steak eaters, the more we find that additional things added to the steak doesn't necessarily raise the bar. It can, adding foie gras, if it's done right, to a ribeye could be really good. Of course, a sprig of thyme and some garlic and some butter is a great finish to any, it's a great accoutrement to any ribeye. But anyway, the more important and the moral of the story is to get out there and make sure you're cooking it right. Get that experience, enjoy it. And enjoy it. Excuse me for doing that, but we reporting live, and it's time to get this thing moving on to the next episode. You know what I'm saying? Bling, 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 bling. And then, hold on, let me stop that. So anyway, I've been your host, BK, a.k.a. B Season on IG, a.k.a. that boy be cooking, a.k.a. that boy that helps you understand how to curate your life and media and recipes.
The player way.
And we gonna end that just like that. Ladies and gentlemen, everyone in between, with all due respect, I've been your boy, BK, Chef Boy RD, Chef Boy RBK, actually. And this has been your next episode of